Please provide an invocation.
Sorry, I sat way in the back today. Will you pray with me? Heavenly Father, as we gather together and praise you for this day and for your purpose for it, help us to reset our agendas as we sit in your presence. Lord, this week we remember all of those veterans, both past and present. We ask for healing for those who have been wounded in body and soul, wounds that are both visible and invisible. We pray for those who have returned and for those who are deployed around the world, protecting the very freedoms that we enjoy today. We lift up those who have served in prior wars and live with injured bodies or traumatized spirits, and we ask that you receive your solace in your healing. Finally, we pray for our brothers and sisters who are unable to pray for themselves, that they may receive the blessings and the prayers we offered on their behalf. These things we ask in your name. Amen.
You may be seated. Thank you, Eric. I want to welcome our guests, and we have a lot of guests here today. We are not going to be able to do guest introductions, but I do want to do introductions, and we're going to try something different. For those that have served our country, we're going to allow you to share the branch of service and anything about your service that you'd like to, and we're going to come around. Either Jen or Sandy has the mic, and I know we have a number of individuals here. We can start with our special guests here at the front table. Thank you.
Ron Mielke, 38 years, most of which was in the Air National Guard.
Jeff Marlette, about 40 years with the Army National Guard.
I'm Mark Morrell, currently serve as the fighter wing commander here at the base at Joe Foss Field.
Yeah, I'm Brandon Escom, and I serve as the vice commander along with Colonel Morrell.
Hi, everybody. Mark Johnston, visiting Rotarian. Served almost 30 years between the Army National Guard and the Army Reserve.
Hi, my name's Miranda Teedy. I served in the Army National Guard with the 153rd Engineer Battalion in Huron.
I'm Amanda Kipley. I served, this is my 11th year, active duty Air Force Reserve, and now Air National Guard down in Iowa.
Eric Ellefson, 23 and a half years with South Dakota National Guard.
Dean Karski, Air Force active duty, 1983 to 1989.
Rod Carlson, active duty Air Force, that was a long time ago. 4 years, 67 to 71.
Bernie DeWald has served in the Army, stationed in Panama for 2 years, 56 to 59, and then joined the Guard for 2 years until I got injured, and they discharged me.
Regan Smith, United States Army and South Dakota National Guard.
Lord Nah, South Dakota National Guard, was a transportation unit in Brookings, South Dakota.
Ben Hendershot, United States Marine Corps Infantry. So, visitor today. Thank you for having us.
Steve Sikorsky, U.S. Army, 2 years in Korea, and in the reserves, Army Reserves for 4 years.
Bill Byrne, Army Reserve.
Dwayne Walk, 19 months in the Army and 14 of the months in Vietnam.
Ron Williamson, West Point grad, Vietnam, Army National Guard, 17 years, Reserves, 4 years, and active duty and a chopper pilot in Vietnam for 1 year, but 6 years active duty.
Thank you, Sandy, and thank you, veterans. Our heartfelt thanks to those amongst us that have served. I, for one, my father immigrated from a part of the world where they don't enjoy all the freedoms that we enjoy here. I have a deep level of gratitude for the sacrifices that you made, your families made, to allow us to enjoy the freedoms that we have. So thank you again, and we can't wait to hear from our guests today as we look towards Thursday and a day of celebrating our veterans. We also have other guests here, special guests, the next generation, 3 junior Rotarians. We have Alex Rather from Lincoln. We have Emma Korn from Sioux Falls Christian, and you'll hear from him in just a few moments, David Jones from Jefferson. So please welcome our junior Rotarians. Also in Rotary business, if you were here last week, you were here for the unveiling of our Each One Bring One initiative, where we're challenging our members to reach out to those leaders in their life that they know, that they believe live up to the 4-way test and that would make great Rotarians. We have a visual representation of that in the back. We'll recognize the sponsor as well as the new Rotarian. And for those new applications submitted and approved in November, your name will go into a drawing for a free lunch for the remainder of the fiscal year, so through June of next year. So please bring those people forward that you believe would be great Rotarians. With that, we have a couple new Rotarians that we're going to go ahead and hear from shortly. I want to go ahead first, before we do that, let's have Kayla Etram come forward and introduce our junior Rotarian.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm excited to introduce you today to David Jones from Jefferson High School. He is involved in basketball, track, Best Buddies, BSU, and Collision. He helps out by serving at the banquet and works at David Jones Fashions. If you see him standing next to me here, I think he's got the Best Dressed Award for the day. He looks amazing. I haven't seen everybody's outfit, but you look awesome. He is looking to have a career in business or as a physician. So like with many other of our Rotarians, we have a lot of folks that might want to meet you after this and see if you might want to stay in Sioux Falls after college. Please help me welcome David.
Okay, so today I'm going to talk about just a big life lesson that I've learned and how I learned that life lesson, and also how that's going to affect me in my future. So the biggest lesson that I have learned in my life is to not take things for granted and to be grateful. The lesson that I have learned came when I was about 12 years old. I always liked helping people and have done it my whole life. I was able to do this because my parents have a passion for helping people and taking me everywhere to serve in my community and to go on mission trips in other countries. The mission trips that stuck out to me the most was definitely my trip to India. It all started my 8th grade year when I first heard that my parents were planning on going on a missions trip to India with my brother and me. At first, I was very skeptical about going because I had never really been out of the country before, and we were going to be going to a new place that I almost knew nothing about. But I became more excited once I found out how we would be helping these people. My parents explained to me that we would help build wells for those who need them and build homes for the homeless. They told me that we would be staying in an orphanage to comfort the kids that didn't have parents or parent figures in their life. It all sounded great, but I was unaware that this trip would change my outlook on life forever. Once the day finally came, we hopped on a plane and flew 14 hours to Dubai before taking a connecting flight to India. Our layover in Dubai was 8 hours, and we spent this time with friends that live there. They gave us a quick tour before dropping us back off at the airport. The streets were filled with fancy cars, tall buildings, and people dressed in very expensive clothing. It was one of the most beautiful places I had ever seen in my life. You could tell that everyone was living it up and having fun. This lifestyle would contrast greatly to what I was about to experience in India. Upon arrival in India, we had to take a 2-hour trip to the orphanage from the airport. My family and I got into a small car and we were driven to the orphanage. The very first thing I noticed was all of the dirt roads, and our driver informed us that there wasn't enough money to afford to pay for any of the paved roads that we were in that section of India. Along the way to the orphanage, I saw things that I had never seen before. There were animals all along the road and cars going in every direction with no stoplights. We finally got to the orphanage late at night, but all of the kids were up waiting patiently for us to arrive. They greeted us with hugs and we played with them all night. During the mission trip, I saw so many things that made me grateful for what I have. One of the bigger things that we did was help the homeless. It was nearly 110 degrees in India, and the homeless people we went to see were staying outside in tents. These people did not have clean water, and if they did have water to drink, it came from dirty wells. I also saw families that didn't have any clothing or ripped and torn clothing that they could wear. I saw families living in houses without running water or air conditioning. I was lucky to be able to help them by providing food, clean water, and new clothes. The situations I've witnessed in India helped me to realize that I should be more appreciative of what I have. Going to India really changed my perspective on life and made me not take things for granted. I always think about my trip to India and the kids and families that live there. I appreciate everything more now that I have gone through that experience. My experience there instilled in me a gratefulness that I might not have had if I did not go to India in the first place. This also taught me not to take things for granted. As I look to my future and going off to college to pursue a career in business, I will make sure I never take anything for granted and always value not only my learning experiences, but also my failures. As my dad taught me, life is not going to be perfect and I better be ready for some failures in life. But because of these experiences, I know I will always be grateful for wherever I am at in life and not take anything for granted. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that lesson with us, David, and I look forward to having you here the rest of the month. Next, we're going to induct a couple new members. First, I'm going to have Cindy Peterson, who's pinch hitting for Vani Harari. Vani was a sponsor, and Cindy is going to introduce our newest Rotarian.
Happy Monday, everyone. I'm so pleased to introduce Qual to this group. He was born in what is now known as South Sudan prior to the country's independence and migrated to the United States as a refugee in 1988 after fleeing civil war. After arriving in the United States, Qual spent time on both coasts and in the South, ultimately settling in the Midwest, where he graduated high school and attended college at Western Iowa Tech. Qual quickly discovered his talent and natural ability to connect with people, and he grew his career in business relations. In search for something more, Qual decided to combine his passion for underserved youth and his joy for community and connection, and joined ACE Academy's team in 2020, where he now acts as the school's Director of Community Engagement and Development. As an advocate for community and champion for equity-based action, Qual is excited to join Downtown Rotary.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me today. And it's funny because that intro was going to be my speech today. But thank you for the warm introduction. As Cindy said, my name is Qual, and I actually migrated to the United States in 1998, not 88. But thank you. I'm excited to be here, and as the introduction said, that being an advocate for community and connection and networking was something that actually saved my life. And the reason I decided to stay Midwest is the fact that we have young professionals like David here, and we have veterans, and we have entrepreneurs, and we have mentors. That is the power of Sioux Falls in our community. My career was based on connecting with one another and the power of warm introduction. And she mentioned that I lived in both the West and the East Coast. when I came to the United States, I was just a go, happy, lucky kid. Didn't even speak the English language, so I waved at everybody, but no one wants to wave back. The reason why is because I feel like a lot of people lost a sense of what being a human being is. When I was in the East Coast, I say good morning to somebody, and they just gave me the bird, as you would call it. I was like, I don't know why you're so upset. It's only breakfast. I don't know why you're so angry. But when I moved to Midwest 2014, I decided to stay here because of genuine people and genuine hearts like we have here. And I decided to build my career here in business relations because a community is only as powerful as the people that want to stay here and connect with each other. So I'm deeply honored and humbled to be here and be a member of the Sioux Falls Downtown Rotary. Thank you for having me.
Welcome, Qual. We like Sioux Falls too, so thank you for being part of our community. Next, we have Tom Bosch, who's going to share. Ryan Martin, you both want to come forward. Welcome to the podium, Tom Bosch.
Good afternoon, fellow Rotarians. It is my sincere pleasure to introduce to you one of our two new members joining us today, Ryan Martin. It's my belief that God, certainly one of the many blessings is that he creates us to be relational. And through, and many of you can relate to this, through involvement in an organization, the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, Ryan and I became involved and became friends, and a friendship was born a couple years ago. Ryan serves as the market president of First Western Bank and Trust. And 2-3 months ago, Ryan reached out to me and we had a cup of coffee and talked about getting engaged within the community. Ryan certainly is already one that is engaged, serving in the Junior Achievement Classroom, part of the chamber through YPN and also the Business Leadership Council where he serves. So we visited in regards to Rotary and what Rotary stands for. So he said yes, attended a couple meetings with me and said, I'm in. I want to be involved. So without further ado, I'll introduce Ryan and he can share a little bit about himself. Please join me in welcoming Ryan Martin.
Has everyone finished their lunch already? So, we're bringing a new bank to town, so don't throw any food at me, okay? I know we've seen a few banks come into this town over the number of years, but I'm excited to be part of this one. And I think really we should view this as a testament to Sioux Falls. I mean, the community that Sioux Falls really is we all know how special it is, but now you're starting to see some of these other industries and other companies really see how special Sioux Falls truly is. So when I was able to bring some of the leadership down from a North Dakota-based bank down into Sioux Falls and show them around, I think their eyes were open quite widely. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited about the opportunity about being part of Rotary as of all the things we've got going on here in the community as well. And I'm just really thankful for the time and all the introductions we've already had. In fact, we were just sitting over at lunch having conversations about all the things that are going on in the state of South Dakota. And everyone at the table brought up something new that was going on. So you look at all the activity, that's just going to create more opportunities for all of us on the business community side as well. But also just personally to enrich our lives with all the new people that are coming into the community. And we can really show off how special Sioux Falls really is. So thank you for the introduction, Tom, and thanks for allowing me to join Rotary today. I'm excited to be part of this more going forward.
And while we take a picture, I would ask Ron Mielke and General Marlette to make their way to the stage. All right, in a program we've been looking forward to for some time, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Ron Mielke to moderate a conversation with General Marlette. Thanks.
Thanks, President Tony. One thing that
General Williamson didn't say is he's also a former Adjutant General and served as a Major General in the United States Army, South Dakota Army National Guard. Congratulations on that career. So General Marlette, appreciate you coming and visiting with us today. We haven't had the Adjutant General from the South Dakota National Guard for a long period of time, and this being Monday and the start of what eventually will be Veterans Day on Thursday, we thought this was a good time to have someone like yourself to come and visit with you. Cindy suggested to me that one of the nice things we like to do is to get to know a little bit about our individual that serves as our program, and so I asked General Marlette if he'd share with us, you know, how he got involved in the military, obviously many years ago in the South Dakota Army National Guard, and what it took to make it all the way to be a Major General, which is a 2-star general. So, go ahead, General.
Well, first of all, thank you for the invite. It's really an honor to be here and spend some time with all of you, and especially during Veterans Week. I'll try to behave myself. I'm used to walking and talking, so I might knock things over if I have to sit still, but we'll try. But, you know, I'll tell you my story is, what I found is, not to brag on my family, but is really a similar story with a lot of South Dakotans. My grandfather joined the South Dakota National Guard in 1908. My grandmother lost 2 brothers in World War I. My father played in the state basketball championship in February of 1942, which they won, and on Monday, he and some of his fellow teammates left high school and went down and joined the Navy because Pearl Harbor had just happened. My stepfather was a Korean War veteran, my brother a Vietnam-era veteran, and so when it came my turn, and when I graduated from high school and off to college, it was pretty obvious what I was going to do, and had a desire to join the military and join the National Guard. And as you heard me say, I've done it now almost 40 years and have never regretted a day in uniform, to include deployment to Iraq for about 15 months. But I tell people I have the best job in South Dakota because I get to work with absolutely some of the very best South Dakotans, people who are committed to serve this country, and you start from that basis, from that baseline. As far as how did I become a general, I stayed around longer than everybody else. You know, honestly, I just always had the opinion that I'm going to show up, I'm going to work hard, I'm going to try to be really good at my job and invest in the people around me. And what I found in leaders like General Williamson and General Mielke and others is, you know, the people that get to this level, at least in the military, and I think it's true in other organizations, are the people that realize it's not about them, it's about investing in their team, and it's about helping everyone achieve. And so I always say I've never been promoted, but our team has been promoted several times. And I really believe that. And so I think that's how I got there. Yeah.
Sounds good. One of the things, you serve in really 2 different positions here in the state of South Dakota. You're on Governor Noem's cabinet as the head of the Department of Military, and you also serve as our Adjutant General. Can you kind of tell us what the difference is, or kind of what your primary role is in each of those 2 positions?
Sure. You know, I kind of have a couple different bosses in that regard. You know, primarily it is the governor, and I am a state employee, and I serve at the request of and the pleasure of the governor. And in that capacity, you know, I serve as her military advisor, oftentimes veterans advisor, although we do also have a Secretary of Veterans Affairs. But in things like response to emergencies that we may have, when we need to deploy for federal deployments, but also get some involvement in strategic vision for the state and how it, you know, impacts. We have 72,000 veterans in this state, and so honoring all of them and continue to provide the services that they need also becomes part of it. But great job. I love working with Governor Noem. She understands the role that she plays as Commander-in-Chief, and sometimes it's different than her role as governor. And we'll talk about this a little bit down the road, but I think everybody pretty much knows her position on vaccine and federal mandate for vaccine. But we as the military received a mandate that all of our soldiers and airmen would be vaccinated. That's a different role that she has to play as Commander-in-Chief, because we received a lawful order from the President of the United States and the Secretary of Defense to vaccinate our force. So even though she may be strongly opposed to this, she understands that there is a difference. So she does a great job for us in that role.
One of the things I suspect that many people here don't fully understand, the South Dakota National Guard is made up of both the Army National Guard and the Air National Guard. Maybe you can just give us a quick preview of the Army National Guard side versus the Air National Guard side of the South Dakota National Guard.
Yeah, well, or maybe touch on maybe just the Guard overall, because that kind of leads into it. We do have both Army and Air National Guard. We have about 4,300 soldiers and airmen in the South Dakota National Guard, of which about 1,000 of those are full-time, and the other 3,300 are what we call traditional guardsmen. They work full-time jobs alongside all of you every day, and they come and spend time in uniform. You know, in the old days, it was probably more along the lines of one day a month or one weekend a month and 2 weeks in the summer. I'll tell you that that's far from over, and it hasn't been that way for a long time. But we have three primary roles as the National Guard. We have a federal mission to be trained, ready to deploy, to go serve wherever we need to go on a federal level. And since 9/11 especially, you know, I can tell you we've had guardsmen, South Dakota guardsmen deployed since the Spanish-American War. But in recent years that all of us remember, since 9/11, we have had guardsmen deployed, South Dakota National Guardsmen deployed somewhere in the world every single day since 9/11, with the exception of, I think, 42 days. They've been somewhere. Right now, today, we have soldiers in Djibouti. We have airmen in Kuwait. We have soldiers preparing to go to Iraq. We have soldiers preparing to go to Europe. We have soldiers at the southwest border. We're all over the world on a regular basis. And we have about another 3 or 4 deployments we're preparing for in the next 12 to 15 months. So that's our federal mission that we do very well. We then have our support to military support civilian authorities, which would be the emergency response. And that can come in the form you've seen in the last 12 to 18 months. You've seen that in COVID support, call centers. We've seen it in support to our hospitals, standing up alternate care facilities should our hospitals get overrun. We've had civil disturbance cases where we got involved with some things going on in the streets, both in South Dakota and across the nation. Response to fires, floods, blizzards, tornadoes, hurricanes. We are very involved in a drug demand reduction mission in South Dakota that we have embedded guardsmen on a daily basis in with DEA, FBI, National Guard, DCI, working all these law enforcement roles, supporting them as they're trying to fight the war on drugs here in South Dakota, and stay very active with those. And then another mission we have, our third primary mission, is we have a diplomacy mission. Every National Guard in the country has a partner country in the world. And our partner country is Suriname. And if you were to look at South America, Suriname's at about the 2:30, 2 o'clock position on South America. And so we go and we partner with that country. We train with their military. We do humanitarian type support. We do all kinds of things to try to help win hearts and minds. China is extremely involved in South America, as they are in other parts. And so we are there to try to counterbalance in those countries. But it's not just in South America this takes place. The Guard is involved all across the world in those partner countries. And we are one of the main efforts of diplomacy that they have going in a lot of these countries is the Guard relationship with those countries. So just kind of to sum that up, I would tell you that we're kind of the Swiss Army knife. We get lots of missions, we call them lots of things, and we have a very capable force that can do a lot of different things. It's kind of a long answer to your question.
No, that's all right.
Yeah.
I believe there's a law out there called Posse Comitatus, which really kind of is the guidelines in terms of what Guard members can and can't do, for instance, in support of, say, law enforcement, et cetera. Do you want to kind of share with the group a little bit about kind of what Guard members can and can't do in terms of what their role is?
There are laws that support the different types of missions. The Guard, I should say, when we are in support to civilian authorities, we can sometimes be put into what's called a Title 32F status. And that takes a FEMA declaration or a presidential sign-off to put us into that capacity. In a normal state active duty capacity, we don't have arrest powers of law enforcement, but in a 32F status, we could do that. So we get into different, but that's where the posse comitatus comes in. Our job is not there to be there to take over. We're there to support other agencies. Even this last year, one of the unique things was when we had the COVID fight, the Department of Health, and not the Emergency Management Department in South Dakota, was put in charge of the fight. And so it was different for them because they're not used to running an emergency operations center and those things. And so the Guard came alongside to support them, providing doctors and nurses and manpower to do those things. So
I think a lot of people don't quite understand, like I know when we had some of the riots here in Sioux Falls, and we had Army and Air National Guard folks that were supporting those folks, that you aren't necessarily there to arrest people, and I mean, you're there to support those law enforcement people that are on the front, and you're taking direction from them.
And even though we do have law enforcement, we have military police and security forces that are trained in those skill sets to be able to do a lot of those things, but we're absolutely there to take the lead from the civilian agencies that are there, and that it's called military support to civilian authorities. One of the things I do want to back up, and maybe you're going to come to it, but I just want to touch on, from time to time you'll hear the governor talk about the South Dakota National Guard being one of the top of the nation. And Colonel Morale and Colonel Eskrim over here that lead the effort out here at the 114th Fighter Wing, they've just received, for the 7th time, the top flying wing in the nation. More times than any other wing in the entire Air National Guard. 7 times. On the Army side, somebody mentioned being in the Brookings Guard unit. The 152nd CSSB Battalion out of Brookings, for the 3rd time in 4 years, received the outstanding battalion-size unit in the nation. The year that they didn't win it, the 152nd from Huron won it. So South Dakota has brought that home 4 years out of 4. 3 years ago, there's an award called a Superior Unit Award, in which there were 32 of them given out in the entire nation. South Dakota received 30 of them. Wow. So it's truly an honor to be able to lead the caliber of soldiers and airmen that we have in our National Guard. It really is.
So we've kind of touched on this, but maybe you can expand a little bit more on how deployments, whether they're deployments to support state kinds of activities or federal activities, kind of how are deployments, those kinds of things typically funded, either at the state level or the federal level?
If we receive a call up, a notification of sourcing through the Department of Defense, those normally have been about a year to 15 months in advance. There's a train up that we do. We know the type of mission. We're told where we're going. We start focusing on, is it an Iraq mission? Was it an Afghanistan mission? What type of mission is it? And we really fine tune our focus. We will continue to do that through our normal Title 32 drill status as we prepare, with some additional days thrown in there, and then they will deploy and go on what's called Title 10, which is basically active duty status for the length of their deployment. And deployments range from 9 to 12 months most of the time. And when we are called for a state mission, there is a fund, a state emergency fund that we are paid out of. And I'll jump into this one because I know that there's a question. We all most of our missions are in State of South Dakota, but we do get called to go into other states to do missions if they have a need, if the mission is overran, their capability or is significant, or maybe they have assets that are gone. I'll use an example. In April, we were fighting fires in the Black Hills with our helicopters, dropping water buckets on them. That was an internal state mission we get put on what we call state active duty. They're actually temporary state employees. And their benefits, it's a set hourly wage the legislature sets based on their grade and a state active duty. We then got a call shortly after that from North Dakota, and they said, we've got fires burning up here. Our helicopters are on mission and deployed. Can you come help us fight our fire? And so we went up there. That's done through a compact between states where we can ask for assistance. They then went down to Texas for the mission at the southwest border, and that was a result of Arizona and Texas asking for support. And what they said is that we have far outran our ability for what's coming across the border, and we need assistance. And what was unique about that is that they said, normally when you do an EMAC or an out-of-state, you will be reimbursed by that state that's asking. In this case, they said, we need so much support, we don't have the funding to ask. We're asking governors to support this yourself and states to support it. And so that was a decision that was made to send us down there. And you know, there was the hubbub around the millionaire, whoever donation. We got paid out of the exact same fund. Just to be very clear, there was, you know, I've heard it all. You know, you'll find I'm pretty honest. I'm just pretty, I hope you think I'm honest, but I mean, it's just, I don't have anything to hide, okay? I just lay it out there. There was no involvement with a millionaire on our perspective to the Guard. There is absolutely nothing. I mean, we receive an order from the governor to go, we get paid out of the same fund for that as we did to go to North Dakota, as we did to fight the fires in the Black Hills. It's the exact same fund. The governor has the ability to receive funds that they process and go wherever. It's totally transparent to us. What I can tell you about that is that what we do on a regular basis is we have what's called a all hazards plan. And so at any given time, we have a team that is looking at the types of events that the Guard could get called to do. And we always look internally, and then we're watching what's going on across the nation. So right now across the nation, we have Guardsmen driving school buses. We have Guardsmen running polling places. We have Guardsmen in hospitals and nursing homes and vaccines and food distribution sites, fires in California, hurricanes in Louisiana, all of those roles. And so we're always looking and saying, okay, in South Dakota, what are the types of hazards that we have? Floods, blizzards, tornadoes, fires, lost children, those type of things that we support. And then what other types of missions? And so we always try to stay ahead. So when this request came in, we had already been looking out and saying, okay, this is being asked for. What does this mean to South Dakota? And so when we met with the governor, we presented a plan. She was talking about, do we want to send the National Guard or Highway Patrol or law enforcement? And our recommendation was send the Guard. And then ultimately that was a decision she made. And it was a good mission for us, to be quite honest. We have 125 soldiers on the border today in a federal capacity. They are primarily in the Arizona area, but their mission is more observation, whereas the group that went down to the very southwest of Texas, they were right on the border interacting with people walking across the border, and some that, by and large, the people that walked across the border walked up, saw the uniform, said, I must be in the United States, turned themselves in, and they were then processed by Border Patrol. And there were some that would probe and realize that if that wasn't where they should be and would turn around and go back. And so, yeah.
So just to be clear, I mean, we all really need to understand on the civilian side whether you're being called to active duty, so to speak, on a federal status, which typically the federal government pays for when you're being called, or when you're performing duty on a state level, either within state of South Dakota pays, or you have these compacts amongst states, and those compacts determine, you know, how that funding is going to be provided by, you know, sometimes the state that you go to pays the bill. In one case you cited, you and the governor agreed that we would contribute those dollars. Right. And really the issue about the private donation had nothing to do with the Guard. That was basically between a decision that the governor decided if she wanted to accept that or not.
Yeah, from my vantage point, we were already into the mission and going. I wasn't there. I don't know, but it wasn't like, hey, somebody called up and said, mobilize the Guard, I'll pay for it. She was already down that road. We were going that way. You know, and for us, it doesn't matter, you know, because we're gonna be paid out of the exact same fund we're always paid out of.
Sure.
So.
What do you see as far as future deployments relative to our southern borders? I mean, obviously we have a challenge in our country with what's going on at the southern border. Do you see the Guard being continually used to help with that whole situation there?
You know, and I think that speaks to the governor's intent. You know, when asked by Texas and Arizona, she said, I agree, this is a crisis that impacts the state of South Dakota in the way that immigration was being handled, but also in the amount of drugs. I think probably most people have tracked this, but you don't have to do very much digging to realize that largely the amount of fentanyl and illegal drugs coming into this state are coming through our southern border. And in Rapid City in August, we had the Guard participated in one bus that was close to $14 million in cocaine, fentanyl, illegal drugs and ammunition and some weapons. And about a week later, just across the border in Wyoming, stopped 24 pounds of fentanyl. That's 12 million lethal doses of fentanyl.
Wow.
And just in Sioux Falls recently, what was 70-some pounds of cocaine or something that was. So there's a lot of drugs flowing into South Dakota. And so in that capacity, we went. Right on the heels of that, Secretary of Defense asked for us to send National Guardsmen to the southern border in a federal status. Normally we get a year's notice. We got 90 days notice on that. And her answer was absolutely, we will send the South Dakota Guard. We have another border mission coming up. 1742nd got there early October. They'll be there about a year. And we have another mission going on, and probably, I think it's July, we'll send another mission down. That one will be primarily a helicopter observation mission. But so that southwest border mission is going to be here for a while. Very active.
Thinking about, you know, the Guard is deployed an awful lot to places like Iraq and Afghanistan. Obviously, we've withdrawn our forces now from Afghanistan. Looking out the next 2, 3, 4 years, what do you see as far as deployments outside the United States for our Army or our Air National Guard folks?
Yeah, right. You know, I don't see it slowing down a lot. It'll be interesting though, because as we have now pulled out of Afghanistan, but we're still getting deployment requests to go to Kuwait and Iraq that are out 18 months from now. So I can't see it out very far beyond 18 months, but I know we're still getting deployment requests for the things that are going on in Africa and Djibouti and those areas. That's an unstable region that our 196 Maneuver Enhancement Brigade here in Sioux Falls just spent a year over there, and they were literally in several countries working. We have a unit there now. So I think those will continue. I know we have some missions into Europe, which is a show that we haven't forgot about Europe. You know, right now we've shifted the focus over the last 20 years. It was a counterterrorism type fight, you know, with ISIS and these different units. Now it's shifting back more to a focus on China, Russia, Iran probably as the primary threats to us. More of almost a Cold War mentality that we're seeing. What's going to be interesting is that as we're trying to retool and re-equip, post-war, if you'll have it, coming out of Afghanistan usually results in lower defense budgets, which makes it tough to try to upgrade equipment. You know, we had for the last 20 years in Afghanistan and Iraq, we had total air superiority. Now we're facing a very peer-to-peer threat with both Russia and China. We need to upgrade aircraft and weapons systems to be able to be peer-to-peer with those. And so it's hard to reduce budgets and grow new equipment at the same time. So
I think you'd agree there's such a reliance today on the National Guard relative to our active duty folks, and I don't see that changing in the foreseeable future. The Guard used to be that force and reserve. That changed several years ago. Comments about?
No, you're absolutely correct. We went from being a total reserve to an absolute strategic partner that they can't fight today's wars without us. They just simply can't. And we're heavily involved, as you heard me say, in literally every theater of the world. And so we will continue to be that way. So.
One of the things that I talked about in a speech I gave at Memorial Day, I came across the statistic someplace that said something like only 25% of all of our youth aged 17 to 23 are even eligible to serve in the military today. They have drug records, they have other convictions. I'm concerned in the future that we're going to be able to find those young people that we need, just like all of our employers out there need these young people. How do we attract young people to serve in the military as we go forward with that pool being so small?
So everybody under 40 in here, raise your hand. We're going to swear you in right now. We need you. That you're exactly right. There is I've seen studies out there that the amount of people that are eligible or that have a propensity to serve is somewhere in that 25 to 30%. It is. That's somewhat staggering, but the reality is less than 1% of the population in this country ever put on this uniform. So it's not totally a surprise. And what you find is people, a large amount of those who serve have family members that did serve. And the Midwest does have a really strong heritage of people serving. And so in South Dakota, we've been very fortunate that during this entire time that I talked about since 9/11 that we've had units being deployed, we've never been under 100% strength. So every one of those young people that joined our organization, which is the majority of our organization, joined knowing full well they were going to deploy. They joined absolutely knowing that they were going to deploy and could be off to combat. And they still came, and they still do today. The Air Guard ended the year at about 106% strength. I think number 2 in the nation. The Army Guard ended the year at 104% strength, one of the top 10 in the nation. And so we're very fortunate here in South Dakota that people continue to put on the uniform and are proud to serve. And a lot of it's just because of people like you and what you did at the start of this. They see our community honoring our people. And it's kind of embarrassing. This weekend, I had guard drill, and I wore this uniform, and 2 out of 3 times that I was in public, somebody bought my lunch. That's just, it happens all the time. That's what South Dakotans do to honor their veterans and to honor their military. And so I think we're on good, solid ground here in South Dakota. But it is tougher in some ways with civil convictions and some of the things we face. Yeah.
I agree with you that we're really blessed here in South Dakota, not only with people being willing to serve. We have absolutely great employers, all of you that are out there that are employers. I tell people we couldn't have better employers in the state of South Dakota that support our Guard and Reserve members. There are states, from what I read, though, that they are struggling to maintain 100%, whether it's in the Air National Guard or the Army National Guard. So as a nation, we're not...
Yeah, no, you're correct.
I think we lost our mic someplace. Maybe it's back.
Check.
Go ahead, sir.
Nationwide there's some challenges. Is this on?
I think he's...
Nationwide, there are some challenges with that. I'm glad you mentioned ESGR, Employers Support the Guard and Reserve. Out of the 4,300 soldiers and airmen in the South Dakota National Guard at any given time, we have less than 15 of them that are unemployed. Think about that. Our employers love to hire guardsmen. They support them. Tomorrow we get to go down to, or Wednesday, we get to go down to Yankton And Yankton is going to receive an award for being one of the top in the nation, one of 12 in the nation. Sanford, a couple years ago, received a similar award for being one of the top employer support in the nation. And they get that because when their soldiers or airmen are deployed, they do things like make sure that they may be an executive with Sanford and they're a sergeant in the Guard. They make sure that they don't lose their wages. It's amazing how many, during the COVID pandemic, as we started counting up how many RNs we had in the South Dakota Guard that could provide support, we found that we had something like 64 RN positions in the Guard, but we had over 100 RNs in the Guard. Wow. We had RNs that were jet mechanics out at the Air Guard because they wanted to serve. When I went to Iraq, my Sergeant E5 driver was an attorney, because they wanted to serve in the Guard and they wanted to be there. But our employers are phenomenal, and the things that we have asked them to do in the last few years, they have been there every time. And you worked that area. I mean, the very, very, very few questions or concerns that we ever get from an employer is they just want to know what to expect. It's not that they're complaining about their Guardsmen, being gone. So we're very blessed with that.
And I always tell people it's not only the employers themselves, but the fellow employees who quite often work extra time, those kinds of things. It's those other employees that help make sure the job gets done while their fellow employees deploy.
I remember one time Representative Arch Beal called me up and he said, I love the Guard. My problem is that out of my route drivers, 70% of them are Guardsmen, and you take them to AT and I can't deliver beer. And so, can you work with me on this? And so we did. We made it work. And the other group in there is families. We've asked a lot of our families in the last 20 years. Our soldiers and airmen, when they get deployed, they don't worry about the mission they're going to do because they know they're well trained. They've got a good team, but they worry about what's going on at home. And so our families have stepped up, but people step up around them. People show up and shovel their sidewalks and mow their yards and make offer to help do some daycare or child care. Again, it's a blessing to live in South Dakota with the support that we get.
One thing I read recently, and we had a program kind of related to this not very long ago. We're just about done. Certainly we'll save a couple minutes here for questions.
I'll talk all day. I just don't want to bring your time. Yeah.
I read that within the Department of Defense, there were 580 suicides in fiscal year 21, and the federal fiscal year ended the end of October. The National Guard had 119 of those, according to this statistic. Maybe can you share with us a little bit about kind of what's happening regarding suicides in the National Guard particularly? What kind of programs are maybe out there to help? And what can we as civilians, employers, et cetera, do to kind of help recognize and do our part to get that number to go down?
Yeah, that's staggering, the amount of suicides. And of all the branches of service, the National Guard has the highest amount of suicides. And I haven't totally figured that one out. And they're mostly in very young people. And they are, people oftentimes will say, well, wow, they must have deployed and really got into something really that messed them up or really impacted them. By and large, the majority of them have never deployed. And so it's interesting to try to watch. And in South Dakota, thank God we've been blessed. We've only had one, I think, in the last 4 years. And so we work hard at it. We do things. We have on our staff, we have an entire division that's dedicated to resiliency and family support and soldier support. We have psychologists on staff that work with our commanders and with our people. We talk all the time, and we believe this, that the South Dakota National Guard is a family. And every one of them have other choices, and they choose to be part of this family, and we treat them like family, and we try to be there for them. One of the beauties that I've always loved about the Guard, and I'm sure you're the same way, I know that if I really am up in a tough spot, I could pick up the phone and I have some people that I could call, and if I said I need you, all they'd ask is where and when. Nothing else, where and when. and they'd be there. If I'm traveling across the state and a car breaks down, or my daughter's, who, when she got married, she asked if she could still keep her guard plates because of all the people that were buying her food at the, but that's the family that we have, and so we try to stress that and keep that family, and we try to be there. We also have a thing where we really utilize our non-commissioned corps to stay involved with all of our soldiers and airmen, not just at weekend drills or annual training, but during the month to stay engaged. COVID was extremely hard on young people. There was a real spike in suicides across the nation in that college-age students and what was going on. And so we were very deliberate. We had our chaplains corps, we had our NCOs making contact with all of those people on a regular basis, just saying, hey, how are you doing? Hey, did you lose your job to COVID? If we had somebody that lost their job to COVID and we had an opportunity to put them on orders with the Guard, we put them on orders because we were going to make sure that they could take care of their family. If we, some states quit drilling because of COVID, we found ways to drill so that we could ensure that our families were being taken care of and our soldiers were being taken care of. So it's you work at it, is what you do. And we've been blessed to.
1 in 4 years is great.
Yeah, we've been blessed to be able to keep it low. So.
You mentioned the NCO Corps, and I just have to share with the audience, I've heard over the years that I was in the military that every country in the world would love to have our non-commissioned officer corps. They are literally the backbone of our military. So
that's right.
We officers sometimes think we are, but they really are the backbone of.
That's just an air guard thing. The Army doesn't. No, I'm kidding. No, it really isn't. We really are. Our enlisted corps makes it happen, and you know, the guard. Our average soldier has a VOTEC or a college degree, and I'm not taking a shot at active duty. It's a different mentality. It's a different not mentality, but a different set of people that graduate from high school and go off to active duty, and some may, but we have on average a higher educated population. We have a population who has civilian jobs that are very demanding, and they pick up those skills in the civilian world. And so when we have emergencies like we did with COVID, we didn't need a military application. We needed all the talent that we had within the Guard, and sometimes it was because so-and-so was a dentist on the outside, or so-and-so was a city planner or something, and we utilize all that talent. I think it's also noteworthy that when we do have emergencies like we did this last year that are that large, we are very careful to look at the talent that we're trying to pull. I'll use this example. We had one of our doctors was the only doctor in Faulkton, South Dakota. We weren't going to mobilize them to come on state active duty because that community needed them. Law enforcement, we watch very carefully whenever we take a law enforcement person. You know, we have mayors in our ranks, we have state's attorneys, we have doctors, nurses, all those people, so we watch very closely who we bring on when we bring them on. Try to work with them. So.
I promised time for a couple questions. I know somebody's got a mic in the back. Here's your chance to ask a question of the general about the Guard or today's military. I see a hand back there. If we have a mic back there by chance?
Check. Check.
United States Air Special Training with us to train us how to be a better fighter. And I was lucky we have 3 people in our group. They taught us and they put their life in danger to teach us how to be a good fighter and how we protect our freedom and our people, which was surrounded by 4 dictatorship governments in Kurdistan, Iraq, Iran, Syria, and Turkey. With that, I want to thank you and thank every man and woman in uniform in this country to keep the whole world in peace and teach us to be a better fighter to protect our freedom. And I was very humble and honored in the Governor Mike's time. I involved with the National Guard when they deployed to Afghanistan and Kurdistan and Iraq to give them some advice how it look like over there, the culture and different, and when they come back, to welcome them back and thank them. So again, I want to thank every one of you serve this country, and sadly, as the effort you guys put in to protect us and be free, and 20% the people in this country not appreciate you guys. I say shame to them and thank to you guys to protect us to be safe. Thank you.
We have a question back there.
Yeah, I want to say thank you for that. And you know, that's similar to a comment that I remember standing in Iraq, and a businessman came up to me and he said, "I'm sorry it's so hard for you to help us." He said, "There's a very small percentage of this country that is resisting, and so many," and it was true. "We're so glad that you are here to help us to move to the next chapter in our country and what we need to go to." And so yeah, I have our interpreter from Iraq that supported us now lives in Rapid City, and he was an interpreter for us, stayed on for the Marines and some others, and he called me about 4 years after we'd been there, and he said, "Colonel, I got to get out of here. They're going to kill me." And so we brought him, worked with the State Department, got him over to the United States. They put him in a resettlement location up in Providence, Rhode Island. And he called me and he said, "I don't know why I come to America, nobody speaks English," because he was in this resettlement area and there were so many languages being spoken. And so I went up to visit him, and I said, "Haas, you need to come to South Dakota." And so I called ahead, and when he arrived in South Dakota, his Guard brothers had a house for him to live in. The house was furnished, the refrigerator and the cupboards were stocked, and he had a job. And he has never been unemployed since he arrived in this country. He said he was a teacher in Iraq, and he said, "I want to teach." So we went to Black Hills State University, evaluated his credits, and he would get up in the morning and go to work or go to class until 3, come back and be a custodian from 3 to 11, and then do it all over again. And today he teaches at Douglas High School. He's got a bachelor's and a master's degree in teaching, and he's working on his doctorate degree. And he says, "Americans don't realize how blessed you are to have what you have in this country." And so he's here and he's doing great, but he's similar. He says, "You don't realize what you have." And so when we see the turmoil we've had in this last year, that's America. That's part of what we do occasionally, but we are very blessed. So thank you.
But one last question back there, and then we'll conclude.
General, thank you very much for your time. I'd be remiss if right now if I didn't bring up just a topic of some guests that we have in the room right now. 3 individuals from Veterans Community Project, or veteranscommunityproject.org would be the website. There's a group of people that are coming into Sioux Falls, working with the city. It's a private-public partnership. And I'm curious on your perspective with regards to their mission, which is to leave no brother and sister behind, on the homeless population side of things for the state of South Dakota. So if you don't know Veterans Community Project, you're going to be hearing more about it. I'd encourage you to go out to veteranscommunityproject.org, learn about it. It's a proven model out of Kansas City. These guys are awesome. They're going to do great things. But back to you, the specific question around the veterans homeless population throughout the state. Do you have any perspective there that we might be able to raise for this group that's in attendance today?
Well, just thank you. I mean, that's an important mission, and we have, and I don't know the exact number in South Dakota, but it's far too many homeless, troubled veterans, and then there are several different outlets, and I don't think we can have too many. But I think it's getting the word out, finding them, helping people to tap into those resources, and I know some of the tiny homes, things that are going on with trying to create affordable housing for veterans, helping them to get their feet on the ground, helping them to understand what's available. There's a wide gamut of where veterans place themselves, and oftentimes they're not willing to seek the support that's out there. Some of them won't even go to the VA and get tapped into the VA, which is, we are blessed in South Dakota to have phenomenal VA services. We really do. And so, yeah, just my applause. We do need to really utilize all of those. And there's some great organizations out there doing things. And the VFW and Legion and some of those are out advocating nationally as well. but some of their populations are getting older and older, and for whatever reason, a lot of young veterans aren't joining those organizations. And so the more of these organizations that we can tap into to allow whatever age generation to maybe go help build a house or help get somebody there. So yeah, thank you for that. You know, I was asked a question the other day about what it means to be a veteran, and one of the things that I love is that there is an instant brotherhood, sisterhood amongst veterans. And it doesn't matter if you're talking to a World War II veteran and you're an Iraq veteran, or if you're, there's just something about it when you look in the eyes of another veteran and you start at a position of trust and understand each other. And so that's one of the things I just love about being a veteran, is being able to come alongside and meet other veterans. And it's really special.
Thank you, sir. One thing I would mention, if you're not aware, Thursday morning, 10:30, out at the Alliance, the old Badland Ponds building, is our annual Veterans Day program. Lasts about an hour. Certainly, you're all invited to attend that, sponsored by the Chamber of Commerce. So, General Marlette, thank you so much for being with us today, sharing your thoughts with us.
One last comment that I always want to leave this with people. I'm a flag guy. I'll just tell you, I'm really big on the American flag. And one of the things I always ask people to consider is that those stars, for me, don't represent 50 states. Every one of those stars represents over 10,000 service members who have died for this country. Every single star, over 10,000 per star. And so I kind of go, you know, people protest, people do things. You're going to think I'm crazy, but I won't watch football, basketball, or baseball. The only two sports that I'll watch anymore are golf and rodeo, because I haven't seen them disrespect our flag yet. It's just me. But I mean, it's important to honor our flag.
Back to you, Tony.
Thank you, Ron. Thank you, General Marlette. No surprise he got to where he's at. The humility, the servant leadership. We appreciate you and your team. Thank you for being here today and sharing with us. Join me again for one more round of applause. Thanks again. Looking ahead to next week, we're going to have Jeff Eckhoff and Mark Cotter here to talk about infrastructure development and the fact that we just went over $1 billion in permits year to date in this city. So I look forward to having you back. Have a great week. Thanks.